Okay, so if we kill the advisor, we're going to have to worry about the king. But if we let the advisor go, he's going to finish that ritual and blow up the entire town, which is, yes, technically, it's a bunch of enemy people in an enemy nation, but it's also full of women and children. And man, do you ever wish we were tracking rations and torches instead of armies and war crimes? Hey there, I'm Permanent DM, the creator of the game All My Sty, and today's topic is about the full play experience. If you play long enough in a traditional five-man band style of game, you get to the point where you start romanticizing low-level play again. It's fun to wield great and terrible powers, to be involved in plots that are varied and deep, but sometimes being a rat catcher is just simple fun. West Marches offers a unique opportunity to do both at once. You can play at high levels and low levels in the same place. I think of it a lot like a streaming service where it's nice to be in the mood for a high-powered action movie one day and a low-level drama or horror series the next, and you don't have to switch platforms or find new people to play with. Because it's not only the character sheets and quest logs that are different at high level versus low level, it's also the way that you approach the problems in game and the way that it feels are radically different, at least in theory. In a game like D&D, your changes to the way problems are solved at higher levels are mostly through access to spells. You don't need to worry about traveling from A to B because you can teleport, and now you're there instantly. None of those overroad traveling problems. But once you're in the thick of things, it's all swords and axes and checks. In my game, All My Sty, that is present too, of course, but what changes is what combat means. Even at low levels in D&D 5e, the characters have a bit of superhero about them, and you can treat most monsters as nails and combat as the hammer. Because combat's fun, that's the whole point, at least that's the theory. For some players, myself most certainly included, it is also fun to play in systems where combat is not the default answer. It's scary and dangerous and fraught with problems like people trying to stick pointy sticks through you. No. Combat, that's best to be avoided. We have swords and armor for things going wrong, not for when things go right. Playing the game as a survival horror, well, that's really fun too. The advantage of a good West Marches game is that you can play the plucky adventurer surviving off their luck and wits, always afraid of what is around the next corner, but hoping it's the big score that finally makes them somebody, sometime. Then you can play the hero that puts on their suit of enchanted armor, picks up their enchanted sword, and goes out specifically to be that horror waiting around the corner for the bad guys. In order to accomplish both of these things, though, the game needs to support it. If you start out as superheroes and then you end up as superheroes, it's really hard to kind of experience both parts of the spectrum. The same is true if you start being able to die from an unlucky roll and you end up being able to die from an unlucky roll. In order to allow for both of these types of play to coexist in a single game and to let that happen within the same campaign, we designed All My Sty to have characters to outscale the enemies, to give you that full play experience. At early levels, a single wrong move, a single bad day means the end of your story, the end of your character. Combat only looks appealing when you have an overwhelming advantage, and even then, it can be deadly if the bad guys get a turn. This is the adventurer tier of play. Adventurer tier characters are the ones just starting to get their feet underneath them and to understand the world. They learn quickly, get something major every level, or they die. By the end of the adventuring tier, most of their basic toolkit is kitted out for adventuring and they're ready to look like their class. But even on-level monsters are still stronger than them. You can start the tier as basically a commoner, and you end up at the strength of a level 1 5th edition character by the end of the tier. In All My Sty, if you really like this style of play, there are several rules a GM can use to promote it, including limiting ways to get experience, changing how much experience is needed for a level, and then having tier breakpoints to make things like just EXP not how you get from one tier of play to the other. Or, if this type of play is uninteresting to you, the rules support having catch-up mechanics, minimum starting levels that aren't 1, or an EXP scaling system that focuses on play past the adventurer tier. Well, what is past the adventure tier? Well, now you're a hero. Heroic tier play is defined by transition. You have your basic toolkit from your class, but now you can focusing on developing your story. Unlocking expert level skills means your character can be a specialist that is known campaign-wide. Your character's deeds can also be channeled into creating and upgrading magic items through the acts of daring do. As a heroic tier character, you're starting to catch up to the monsters, and since you have several combat abilities, combats where you have the upper hand feel like something that can be controlled and won, rather than just survived. Also, you have the ability to outlevel a fight or encounter, and you're much more likely to use the "I'm just too good at that to fail" feature of the game and just succeed at tasks. You start heroic tier as a hopeful hero, and by the end of it, you're a powerful veteran. In D&D 5e terms, you start as a level 1 5e character, and you end up as about a level 5 5e character. After heroic tier is Paragon tier. Paragon tier play is defined by wider ambitions. At the start of Paragon play, characters will be able to kick the door in and fight in many instances. Combat is now fun. It's now something to be engaged with actively rather than be avoided. They still have to worry about especially nasty surprises, but in most cases they will outlevel, outscale, or outmatch things their level and lower. The PC scaling has overtaken the monster scaling, so at-level fights are easy with a strong advantage, and in contrast to low-level play, assumed to be winnable if you are fighting on equal footing. With access to master-level skills, Paragon groups center around the tasks at hand and function like specialists known for a specific thing and brought for a specific task. Paragon characters are less concerned with survival and more concerned with the broader picture of the world, with pursuing their own goals and objectives. Players are more likely to barter with other houses for sending Paragon-level characters out on missions in the same manner that a feudal lord might consider sending a levy of troops to do a task. When you start Paragon play, you are a powerful veteran. You can conclude Paragon play, and you are someone whose name goes hand in hand with your house and with your character's chosen field of expertise. You start Paragon play with a power around level 5 in D&D 5e, and you end around 9 or 10. Which leads us to the final stretch, the victory lap in most campaigns, Iconic tier. Icons are known entities. These are the characters in the history books, the one made into figurines for the kids to play with, the superheroes. If you open the book to an Icons class, you will see their picture in the place. Actually, that's true in many cases. The fighter in the fighter entry isn't just some fighter, it's Corey's character, Giles from the playtest. These are legendary heroes with skills to match the deeds of the Paragons as part of every day. The scaling in All Mice Die means that only things that are mythical, campaign threats, and creatures whose levels exceed what is possible for a mouse are even considered threats. At-level monsters, that's good exercise. And those below are tools for instruction to show the common Paragon characters how we do things around these parts. Iconic characters lead an entire society. They change things on a world stage and are imbuing their family relics with so much power that they're awakening sentience in their magic items. When you start Iconic tier, every living mouse in the county knows your name. By the time you make it to the end, every mouse for generations will know your name. Your legend will be the measuring stick for those who come after to prove themselves as a legend. Next season, they could be the next Godfrey is replaced with they could be the next Petrova when people talk about the best barbarian who ever was. Icons start around level 9 or 10 in D&D 5e turns, and they end about the power level of 14 or 15. All Mice Die was designed to promote this feeling of growth, the change from combat as war to combat as sport, where when you play as a character in a survival horror on Monday, it feels especially dark and gritty because you then get to play as Big Brother, as the shining hero on Wednesday, and you never have to leave the campaign or be with a different group. In a traditional D&D 5-man band style play, the world feels like it is often scaling with you. Always you are dealing with the problems before you, which seems difficult and doable. Rarely are the problems trivial for you to handle, or they are impossible to overcome. If done well, it can always feel like your hero is just barely good enough to get the job done, crafting a story about overcoming ever more challenging odds. But the level 1 monsters versus level 1 heroes are balanced and about as difficult as level 10 monsters versus level 10 heroes. Features of the game can feel like a treadmill, especially if there are certain characters whose tools at level 10 look not a whole lot different from their tools at level 1. I'm looking at you, Marshals, specifically. By making the game where the balance of combat changes and slowly shifts from monsters being way up here in favor to the players catching them, overtaking them, and then being the monsters to the enemies, it gives a very different feel to the game. All Mice Die builds that survival horror into the Marvel superheroes arc of the game. Then a GM can look where they want their game to fall on that continuum and highlight that section of the game. Although, even if there is a particular tier that a GM finds more appealing than the others, it is recommended that they leave the other tiers available because the spotlight is made all the brighter by showing all the darkness around it. Being able to take the hero out for a spin or deploying the icon to solve the problem is a uniquely rewarding sense of agency that is really hard to replicate in other styles of play where you're always playing the same character. If this all sounds fun to you and you would like to know more about what we're doing here, like, subscribe, hit the bell button below, and consider supporting me on Patreon if you want more access to cool stuff. My Wes Marches game, All Mice Die, is launching on Kickstarter soon, so if you want to hear about that, there is a link in the description down below, and you can keep the conversation by popping on the Discord. Because at the end of the day, Wes Marches, it's all about community. Until next time, thanks for watching.